33-story hotel and condo project.
I'd probably be
Okay,
like
like
that.
stop, tap.
This is a plan by the community for the community.
This one here, show me.
No problem, Ken. Thanks for having me.
It's Kent Mulgat for Kelowna Now. And we're joined by Cliff Surwall. Cliff, the former MLA from 1986 to 1996.
That's correct.
And I think a key observer as a business person in this community, you experienced the pre-bridge life of Kelowna. You went away traveling and came back, and there it was, a changed place.
That's right. I'm a relatively newcomer to Kelowna. We've been here 73 years.
Just 73.
Just 73 years of my 82. And yeah, it was a changed place. It definitely was a changed place. Prior to that, it was as nice as it ever was with the environment, with the big lake, with the upper mountain lakes, but it was a small community. Both Penticton and Vernon were more active as far as business enterprises went because they had valleys radiating out of those communities. Kelowna was the middle of nowhere. We had the ferry system. For a long time, Pandosy and Lequim too, and then we ran a third ferry, the David Lloyd Jones, but it was still a difficult place to get to and get out of.
One of the old photos we have shows someone taking a herd of, it looks like sheep across.
Oh yes, Jocasorso's sheep, yeah.
So I guess you would always see something different going across that.
Well, that's right. I used to wake up early in the morning and I would hear the pitter-patter of these thousands of sheep. And Joe Casorso would drive them from where the Black Mountain School was. That was a home ranch for Joe Casorso. And he owned virtually all of the property that you could see from there. But anyway, they would drive them across and take them across ferry load after ferry load up into the Bald Range in the up Bear Creek.
Right. All this at a time when you described Kelowna at that point as a sleepy hollow?
Yeah, it was primarily logging, the activity in agriculture. And because of that difficulty of getting to it, that's where it remained. It was a very nice community, there's no question about that. But when the bridge came in, then the population started to increase. We started to diversify the economy here. It was a big deal for the city of Kelowna.
Talk about big deals for the city of Kelowna. There was this gentleman by the name of W.A.C. Bennett who sort of squeaked in out of nowhere to become...
Yeah, a real visionary,
When he first emerged as the premier, he kind of came out of nowhere, and there he was in 1952, but he really dug in for quite some time, and he had a vision. I think you really shared that vision.
Well, his vision was to bring all of British Columbia and British Columbians into the economy of British Columbia. Prior to that, we were what was said was beyond hope. The focus in the population is the Lower Mainland and Southern Vancouver Island. W.A.C. Bennett envisioned a province with an infrastructure, with railways, with roads, with ferries, so that communication and commerce could take place more readily throughout the province of British Columbia. With that, the whole province elevated.
And the bridge was a key part about that.
The bridge was a key part of it, especially for Kelowna. The first opening for the Okanagan Valley came from the Hope-Princeton Highway. When that was opened up, then it made better access into the valley, but we were still the bottleneck here at Kelowna with the ferry system. So the big thing for Kelowna was there's no question about it, the bridge. Then following the bridge, we had the Rogers Pass, and that opened and ended the Big Bend, so we started to get more traffic from Alberta, and things have just gone upwards and upwards.
And the opening of the bridge, which I understand you were away for, but Bennett managed to make quite a big splash, bringing in Princess Margaret. And I happen to know, I spoke to the engineer at the local TV station, CHBC, and they wanted to be broadcasting live from the bridge, but they didn't really have the capability to do that. But because of the ingenuity of people like Tom Wyatt, who's still around and spoke to me about this, they took all of their infrastructure that they normally would broadcast the news from at the station, loaded it up in a van, brought it down, set it up at the site of the bridge, so that everybody could see in real time WAC Bennett there with Princess Margaret opening the bridge. So I think that that sort of signifies what a big deal this was for Kelowna.
Oh, it really was. There's no question about it. Now, when you look at our community, and I could be nostalgic too, because I remember the Sleepy Hollow community that I really grew up in. But when you look at the university, when you look at the, with our hospital, which is really a regional hospital, when you look at Okanagan College and the number of students it brings in, the fact that now we have a diverse economy in the interior, certainly in the central Okanagan, from high tech to manufacturing, we're able to keep our young family here, our children here in our community, and it's really enriching the community with keeping the various generations here. We go back to the Casorsos, there's 5 or 6 generations certainly of Casorsos, but we're starting to get more families that are getting close to that level.
Right. We spoke before this interview about the geography and I guess the geology of it, because prior to that bridge, it's like it doesn't really make sense. You've got a highway that's from near Kelowna heading down south towards Penticton, and then on the other side of the lake, the highway goes north to Vernon. Like, what were they thinking? But I guess it was a question of where you could put a road.
Yeah, it was geology that obviously that question met some of the early people, and I understand in the 1930s that they tried to build a road on this side of the lake, around just above the lake level, around Rocky Point. But they ran into so much rock, and if you've looked at Rocky Point, you can see that nothing but bedrock there, and they couldn't push the road through to Naramata and keep a road on this side of the lake.
Right.
So prior to that, partially is the boats that used to ply the Okanagan before the railway came in. And so there was development on one side, development on the other side of the lake too. But it was primarily geology that facilitated the road from Kelowna south to Penticton.
One thing that WAC Bennett couldn't look to is hindsight to build that bridge, but we now have that luxury. Does it look now, when you look at what Kelowna's become now, did you say that it underlines that he was on the right track making
Oh, he's certainly in the right track, and I don't think we've seen anything yet. We've seen a vast expansion of the city of Kelowna. It's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to attract the best people in Canada into this area, whether they're professionals or in the medical field or engineers or designers or architects. This is a wonderful place to live. And it's a wonderful place to bring up your children. It's a 4-season recreational playground, a marvelous environment with the main lake, with the upper mountain lakes. It's when Doug and I traveled in 1958, at the end of a year of traveling, and I liked New Zealand very much, and traveled through a little bit in Asia and certainly a lot in Europe. And I thought at that time I could quite happily spend the rest of my life just traveling in British Columbia. And there is no finer place to live in Canada or in the world when you take into consideration all of the factors than right here in Kelowna. It's a very special place, chock-a-block full of very special people, and it has been for years and years.
Great. Hey, Cliff, thanks so much for coming in and sharing with us.
Okay, you're very welcome, Kent. I've enjoyed meeting you again and talking with you.
Terrific. And thank you for watching Kelowna Now.